Olive bet, sing. One more time, take it up a little. I'm going to ask everyone to sit up, relax, just sit up straight, please, and just relax on for a few minutes. We're going to start by saying Shabbat Shalom, and usually I start with a shofar, except for those, of course, who have to rest. I understand the expected mothers have to chill out. To prepare for our coming week, I started playing the drums when I was very young. I shared that and met a friend in Rosary by the name of Harry Richard. I got to know the Richard family very well. And Harry was a very unique person. Harry was good at drums and he loved drumming as well as I did. And Harry was from Haiti. His family was from Port-au-Prince, Haiti. I'm moving around there, I'm sorry. Harry is from Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and his family. So we pray for the Richards and the Richard family in Haiti at this time, all those who are suffering from some of the atrocities that's taking place on the island. Haiti is one of, well, as a matter of fact, it's the only independent island of course, our culture. And I just want to send out a praise for those who are assisting those in that particular land, and particularly you, each and every individual. I want to also be mindful that I had a brother who told me that very few Africans were slaves. And he said, if any, he said, but none, he said, was on the 1690 some ship that came to Jamestown, Virginia. He said, that is a lie and a misnomer. This brother was very adamant about it. And his name is Lade and his family. And I always want to say that I'm sending praises for how he impacted my life personally. To Lade and his family, they're from the West Coast, from the Ivory Coast of Africa, right there where the transatlantic slave trade took place. They were not slaves when they got on that ship, but they were forced, indentured in the United States. That anybody that forces anybody to do anything that is against their will is not of Yah, our Abba, because he doesn't force any of us to do anything. I'm going to ask everybody to be still, just pay attention for a minute, because we're going to go through as quickly and briefly as possible. And for all those who are sitting where you are right now, right where you are, and you might have been contemplating other things concerning your life that would be beyond where you are, we're praying for you as well at this time. So I want to open up with a prayer for those, as well as those who are asking, requesting prayer. I want to pray particularly for my mom, who has a headache. It's pretty much symptomatic. So we're going to pray for her from the crown of her head to the soles of her feet. And we also want to pray for, I have a cousin who was requested prayer, who was recently hospitalized, and we're hoping that there's a safe or speedy recovery back. I'm also praying for our family who's lost a loved one, the Boulware family, who's lost a sister. We, of course, know that this year past, a lot of people in our family have passed away. A lot of loved ones have gone on. A lot of friends, I have friends that have passed away just this year. And look where we are in the new year. They're no longer with us on this side of the being present with the Lord, being absent from the body. So we'll want to keep them in prayer. So I'm going to say what is called the Our Father prayer, because Yeshua HaMashiach taught them as John, who baptized, taught his disciples. And he taught them how to pray. They came to him and they said, Rabbi, he said, teach us how to pray. So he taught them how to pray a public prayer. He taught them how to pray in public. And I'm praying for each and every one. Some of those are named, and we named, and we want to pray for also all of Israel spread throughout the four quarters of the earth. And I'm going to start off by praying the Our Father. It's called the Tefillah HaAdan. It's called the Tefillah HaAdan. And right where you are, I'm asking you to pray with me. Zavenu Sabah Shamayim, Yet Kadesh Shimka, Tavu Malkutka, Ye Retzon Nika, Barakut Kashar Neshava Shamayim, Tenalu Hayam Rakim Chekanu. That is, give us this day our daily bread. Ashmelano Kashar Solakamanaknu La Ashar Ashmelano. Forgive us our trespasses. You select Lenowet as we forgive those who have trespassed or have done wrong to us. Those who have wronged us, we ask for forgiveness. That's what Ashmelano means. We ask for those we have wronged and those who have wronged us for forgiveness. And it's Lide Masha, or lead us, okay? De Masha. It's Lide Masha. We also say Kaim Hatsunu, or Ki Ha Hatsunu, Lide Masha. Lead us not into temptation. Father, don't lead us to be tempted. And Ki Lach Min Lach, that is as it is in the time in which we are living. We say Vihagara, that is his is the power. The Tiferet, and the glory in the earth. And we say, Lomin Olamin, Amin. That is the Tafila Ha'adan. The Tafila Ha'adan. And it's the Our Father in English. It's Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. That's Shamayim, come. Thy will be done on earth, Barakut, as it is in heaven. Hashamayim. Give us this day, that is Tenalu Hayam, our daily bread. That's Akim Lakina. As we forgive those, you select Lenuet, or give us this day our daily bread, and we forgive us our trespasses. You select Lenuet, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom, the power, and the glory. Eternally we pray. Amen. Amen. Now, I pray that with a head covering. I'm going to share with you love without a head covering. Had a nice experience this week with a gym guy that, they wanted some instruction. And I didn't share anything. I said the best instruction you can have working out in the gym, and me not being a fitness trainer, I said, is to learn how to do that yourself. And so, of course, they didn't take that to be funny, because, I don't train anybody. I was a semi-pro bodybuilder, and I was in training with a trainer. So I'm not an authorized trainer. I don't give that type of advice out. And of course, we live our lives by sharing. So we're going to look at first fruits, the initial things of first things. And we're going to look at the relationship of Genesis chapter 1 as compared to second Esdras. That is second Esdras in the Apocrypha, chapter 6. And what we're going to look at are the feasts that lead to the new year. The feasts that lead to the new year. Now, relationship to Israel being delivered. Once again, I share with you that deliverance is a permanent deliverance. We're not delivered and going to be back in bondage or captivity. Our captivity days, in case anybody, no one told you, are over. That is being in bondage as slaves are over. That day is over. Unless you are a slave in your mind and in your thinking, then here's a word for you. And it is from the Torah, and we say Shabbat, all the Shalom to our kotis, our brothers and sisters, and we share this with you in love. In Genesis, it says in the beginning. I'm going to look at also John, in First John, where it talks about in the same reference. But in 2nd Esdras chapter 6, it says, and he said unto me, it is spoken, in the beginning, when the earth was made, before the borders of the world stood, or ever the winds blew. It says, before it thundered and lightning, or ever the foundations of paradise were laid, before the fair flowers were seen, or ever the movable powers were established, before the innumerable multitude of angels were gathered together, or ever the heights of the air were lifted up. It says, before the measure of the firmament, it says, were named, or ever the chimney in Zion were hot. That is the chimney in Zion. That is you, Zion. You are the chimney of Zion. You are Zion. Now, in relationship to you, Zion, a people and a nation, and for all those who observe, I want each and every one to be aware that as a nation, as a people, we can't take steps in the wrong path and in the wrong direction and expect better things, because that's not how obedience goes according to his word. And we're not talking about obedience according to how the minister teaches or how he feels. But we know according to the word he has given us his commandment. And his commandments are not grievous to us who are converted to his commandments. And then it goes on to say, then did I consider these things, and they all were made, it says, through me alone, as the Lord speaks, and through none other. It says, by me also they shall be ended, and by none other. So wherever your treasure is, that's where your heart is going to be. Wherever your treasure is. Now, he made the earth. He goes on to say in these same passages why he made the earth. What was the purpose and the objective? The purpose and the objectives for his making the earth is not some giant game that some giant is playing and moving man around and laughing at him while he makes mistakes and pushing him around for hardships to take place, just so that he can get a kick out of watching people acquiesce to whatever they aspire to do, and then to let one man have everything and have everybody else have nothing. That is not what he is done, and that is not what he is doing. So in order to be released to the best things, according to the Apocrypha, is to free your mind. Free your mind. Now, you heard how you sang the alphabet. Your mind has to be as free as the word. Your mind, that is how you think, has to be as liberated as the word. It has to be as confined as the word is. It has to be confined as the word is. If you have the word, you'll be as free in your mind and your body as the word is. And the scripture says, by his stripes, you are healed. I have a family member flying in from up north this week, and they're going to be at one of the well-to-do facilities here, and they're going to be getting therapy. Now, they left a message for me, which I was glad to see. They said, they said, by his stripes I am healed. So by his stripes, the very one we try to avoid, we are healed. But the good thing is, according to the Torah, is that he has given us his word for us to receive his healing. Then we have to eat according to the receptivity of his word that he has given to us. We have to do those things. It starts with our health. Why do I say that, Tisra? I say that because your health is your wealth. If you're not healthy, you can't do anything. If you're not well, you cannot move about as you'd like to. You can't fellowship or embrace the things you need to. You can't do the things that you love to do. Now, I mentioned my friend Lade from the Ivory Coast over the subject matter of the 1690 transatlantic slave situation. And what we have is, like, during that time, Powhatan, who happened to have been a relative in Pocahontas' circle, because Pocahontas was in 1613. During that time, particularly here in the U.S. of A., where we are, Jamestown was the target. And in 1622, the natives, our relatives descended here, those who were here already, had harvested crops and land. But they had another culture come across the waters. And so that culture came because there was a king who had a kingdom and he had sons. And in his kingdom, his sons wanted to help rule the kingdom that was their father's. And so what happened was the father realized that if I go and navigate other lands, then our sons can go to those lands and he could be a king in those lands. So what happened was they sent a man by the name of Christopher Columbus. Now, Columbus took 3 ships with him. One was the Nina, the other was the Pinta, and the other was the Santa Maria. And he brought those ships to the coast of West Africa. And he gathered together groups of people who wanted to stay where they were because they had been exiled from their original country up north at that particular time. But instead, Africans wanted to get rid of these people because these people were practicing Shabbat and they were blowing a shofar and they were keeping festive days and they were following the ritual of that which are the 7 that we're going to talk about today that relates to the New Year's. And so the Africans, who many at that particular time were Muslims because of the Moors that had moved in through Portuguese and have taken over the land in that country. So the Africans were glad to get rid of these people. So they took alcohol, they took whiskey, and they took guns from these particular Englanders and these people that had sent over Columbus, who was Italian. And they gathered the people together, almost at gunpoint, chained them together, and forced them onto a ship. They forced them onto a ship. Not speaking their land and knowing what they were saying, they got on and they were mostly children. Most don't even realize that. They took Hebrew parents in few, but they were mostly children, boys and girls, that were chained on a ship and brought to the coast of the United States of America. Now, during this time in the 1600s, Pocahontas was born. Now, earlier in the times, we had others who, of course, were raiding the natives on the land during 1539. And it's around October 1540, they had a big fight where it was in this country over 1,000 years ago. There were a few thousand years ago, there were those millennials, and 1,000 years ago, they called you the same millennials. But a conquistador by the name of Hernando de Soto, when you do your research and find, he was from Alabama. Isn't that interesting? And he killed he killed hundreds of native in this land, hundreds of natives he massacred. But he was paid to do so by the hands that handed Columbus the same resources to clear the land, because they wanted their sons not to be princes, but to be kings in a foreign land. Are y'all listening to this? Now, in 1595, at this particular time, Pocahontas was used, and Chief Powhatan, who had the tribe protecting them, was one who kept the people safe. But the problem was that his brother kidnapped a man who came in 1607 by the name of John Smith. Now, John Smith got the younger people, like they always do, grab the young people. See, if you ever want to take something over, you grab the young people. And if you ever want to take it over thoroughly, you get the weaker vessel. And the weaker vessel usually, and the younger ones, are oftentimes what they use to take a kingdom or nation down. You take the weaker vessel. And according to the scripture, that says that women are the weaker vessel, not leaving men off as being a weak vessel, okay? So in Jamestown Colony, she was captured by Captain Sam Argall, okay? It was the first Anglo-Powhatan War. That was the first time that whites fought on this soil to get land from these native people. Now, these were the lineage of the Benjamites. These were Israelites that were Hebrew from the tribe. Benjamin was one of the tribes. I should say it that way. Let me say it that way. Benjamin was one of the tribes. So during the time of their festive feast, it was around the time of the new year, coming up to the new year. They had completed the first new year, which was the first new year was the Pesha. That was the first new year. And beyond that was the new year following. Now, I'm going to ask someone to read for us. We're going to look at Leviticus chapter 23. In Leviticus chapter 23, in relationship what we read in the book of Esther, about in the beginning. He made these things for us. That's why I read those passages from Esther. He made these things for us, his chosen people. He chose you to make these things for you. But I'm going to ask someone in Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 23 to read that verse, if you will. I'm not going to call anybody out. I'll just wait till you can. Leviticus chapter 23. It's in one of the Pentateuch, okay? Did anybody have it? Okay, thank you, son. Elder, thank you, my brother. 23 and verse 23. Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 23. Do me a favor, can you touch that man next to you, please? Thank you. Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 23. See, only the managing producer can stay up all night long and all day long. See, everybody don't have that talent. That's a gift. Right? Read on.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, in the first day of the month, shall ye have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets, an holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein, but ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Also on the 10th day of this 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. It shall be a holy convocation unto you. And ye shall afflict your souls, and offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. And ye shall do no work in that same day. For it is a day of atonement, to make an atonement for you before the Lord your God.
So his desire was to make an atonement for you. And what the natives were doing, they were looking to the first part of creation, and they were following the moons and the gifts that were given in planting. You know, natives always looked at the earth, and they heard by putting their ear to the earth. And they talked about the sun, the moon, and the stars. And Chief Powhatan was one who knew that he had to lead his people while they were celebrating at this particular time. And what they were celebrating was Yom Kippur. They were celebrating Yom Kippur. That is the feast of what? The atonement. Am I right about that? That's the feast of the atonement. So it was atoning for their transgression. They were atoning for their transgression. Now, I'm going to go in, I was going to go through all of them, but there's actually 7 in terms of the feast. But I want to look at the new year. So we're not going to look at the 7. We're going to look at the basic 4 types of new year. And I'm going to ask I'm going to skip down from Nicene. Well, I guess we can go there. Leviticus chapter 8 and verse 65. I believe that's right. No, I'm sorry. Somebody read 1 Kings chapter 8. 1 Kings. I like for Yahshua. As you read that, my son, could you read 1 Kings chapter 8 and verse 65. 1 Kings chapter 8 and verse 65. Now the natives in this land, they were celebrating a new year. Deliberately caught off guard, they had to prepare for a war. To understand the transition of our culture, it was war. It wasn't peace, it was war. And in order for love to flourish, it had to come from tribes. Tribes had to embrace one another and to love one another. But if you have 1 Kings chapter 8, Yahushua, and verse 65. Could you read that for us, my son?
And at that time Solomon held a feast,
Uh-huh.
and all Israel with him, a great congregation, from the entering in of Hamath unto the river of Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
before the Lord our God, 7 days and 7 days,
Mm-hmm.
even 14 days.
Yes.
On the 8th day he sent the people away, and they blessed the king, and went unto their tents joyful and glad of heart,
Uh-huh.
for all the goodness that the Lord had done for David his servant, and for Israel his people.
So they had blessed the Almighty for what was done for David. They blessed at this particular time, and this was the new year of Nisan. It's the new year of Nisan. Now, we looked at this particular, and what we've done was we looked at, we read the first one was of Yom Teruah, which is the first month, but I wanted to go through the other ones quickly. Now, the natives of this land, the United States of America, they were practicing the same thing that the slaves knew when they got here. See, that's why the natives who are already here easily identify and marry the natives. They married the natives, what you call Indians. Easily married and united with them because they were Israel and they fell in love and they had offspring. Okay? So they were on the soil of the land, the new land that somebody else had other motives to perform. They had other motives concerning the land. Now that's the new year is Nisan. It was a new year for kings and festivals. That's a new year for kings and festivals. That is in our Bible. Yahashua, I just read it. It's 1 Kings chapter 8 and verse 6-5. The first one we read was Tishri. All right, but I don't want to go into that right now because that is our new year. I'll tell you what that was about later. That's going to be the mystery passage. Now, I need someone to read Leviticus and Yahshua since you started, my son. I love that because you're reaching out. All right, Leviticus chapter 27. Leviticus chapter 27 and verse 32. Now we need to see something here. That's the first new year. Remember, that's the first new year, Nisan. Okay, and that is in the autumn. Okay, that is the first new year. That's the first new year. I'm gonna give you the months in our calendar so that you'll have it for all of my students, because I do have students, and I'm gonna give you the months in that calendar. Okay, the months that's in that calendar. Yes, sir. I'm ready. Did I give you that?
Yeah. 32.
Okay. Yes.
And concerning the tithe of the herd or of the flock, even of whatsoever passeth under the rod, the 10th shall be holy unto the Lord.
Uh-huh.
He shall not search whether it be good or bad, neither shall he change it. And if he changes it at all, then both it and the change thereof shall be holy.
Now I'm gonna help y'all out with something you've never seen before. Now the month is called Elul. The month is called Elul. I'm gonna help you out. The month of Nisan is between March and April. Okay, it's between March and April. Powerful month. It's the first new year. Okay, now the first new year was for kings and festivals. That is the first new year, and that was Nisan. Elul is a different month. Okay, Elul is a different month, and it deals with tithing animals. Tithing animals. And here's a tithing animal. You got 10 sheep. You keep 9 sheep. I know you're not going to believe me, but I bet you go and do your research on this. The 10th sheep you give to the priest at the temple. He sacrifices it and does what? He eats it. You don't give all 10 sheep to the priest. Do y'all get that? But slick, get rich quick. Notice I said get rich quick. Passes us by, trying to be centered to the broadcast itself. These charlatans, con artists, grabbing congregations of folks and telling them you have to pay them a tithe. A tithe is not money because you don't harvest animals every week. And it's not 10% that is against the scriptures because there's a Hebrew word for that. It is the 10th one. It is number 10. Does everybody understand that? Are you clear? And I hope you do your research on it. You say, wow, I never knew that. Well, you know it now, okay? Now, I'm going to move right along. In all joy, Elul is tithing animals. Yahushua just read it in Leviticus chapter 27 and verse 32. It's tithing animals, O Hebrew Israelite. Now, if you're tithing an animal, you're not going to bring an animal in the church and bloody him up and give him to the pastor. So what do you give in the place of that? The scriptures tell you what to give. You got to give 5 more in shekels in money to compensate for the animal that you did not bring into the temple during the time of Elul, the new year. Say the new year. The new year, okay? Now, I need someone, and we're going to look at it real quick, to look at another new year. The third, I would say this is the 4th new year. I'm skipping the 3rd one. This is the 4th new year. The 4th new year that deals with Shalom. Okay? I'm going to ask, could y'all silence that back there, please? Thank you. All right? This is vitally important. So this way you understand where 4 New Years came from. Okay? I want to look at, let me see. Let's do this. We're going to find, it's 2 balls Shabbat. And I can find it. Okay. Shabbat. I want to make sure in Shabbat this is correct. Okay. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 15 to 18. And our designated reader is Yahshua. Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 15. This is what the natives were doing. This is what the African Israelites were doing. They were practicing these days. Now, I'm going to show you what they were doing it with. I'm going to show you what they used while they were doing this. They weren't using a book. They weren't using a book. They weren't using a book. Okay, read that for us, Yahshua.
And ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that ye brought the sheaf of the wave offering. 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath shall be numbered 50 days. And ye shall offer a new meat offering unto the Lord. You shall bring out of your habitations 2 wave loaves of 2 tenths deals.
Wow.
They shall be of fine flour. They shall be baken with leaven. They are the first fruits unto the Lord.
They are the what? The first fruits. These are the first fruits. Now, for everybody who's paying attention, and for you who are at home enjoying the word, first fruits is a new year. It's the celebration of a new year. The first one was upon the first month. This one is a new year for trees. The last one was a new year for animals. The first one was a new year for kings and festivals. So they're new years for days for you. New years. Are y'all understanding that? But it is not our culture overall new year. Are y'all with me here? It's a new year. Each of these 4 were called new years and practiced even to this day by the Ashkenazis, the Khazars, and the Orthodox. Some Hasmoneans practice this, and also you have some of your Sephardics, who we just mentioned. Some of your Sephardics that are Mexican Hebrews who practice all 4 of them. They practice all 4. So this is a new year for trees, Shiva, or Tu B'Shiva. New year for animals is Elul. It's the new year for animals. Or Nisim is the new year for kings. They're party times. Are y'all with us? These are party times. Are y'all understanding it? Okay, now, if we look at the passage of Pesha HaMatats, which is the feast for unleavened bread, and we look at all of those days, they all point to a Savior. The first 4 parts are gone. We spoke about that in the last fellowship. They are gone. They all point to a Messiah. They talk about him. The last 3 are yet to take place. They have not taken place yet. But in terms of the new year, if you look at the passage again, we're going to look at Leviticus once again, Yahshua, and chapter 23. And we're going to read verse 23 again. We need to take a look here. This is the 7th month. I want y'all to pay attention, which will be September the 15th. September the 15th in this month, this particular month. And I want to take a picture of this because in 1789, Sacagawea was also another leader, a native against the U.S., and they waged a war with the natives in this land once again. It's like every 10 years, it's like the Anglos were fighting the people in this land, the natives. But they weren't just fighting them because they were taking them over. They wanted to bring a new religion. And they brought that religion, they called it Catholicism or Christianity, a new Christianity. Do you understand it? They were wiping out your Hebrew culture as much as possible, taking away your apocrypha from your book, your cipher, removing the language of your homeland. And the natives found out they were speaking the same language that some of the slaves that were brought here, or they weren't slaves when they were brought here, they were slaves when they got here, who they changed their tongue. That's why the language and the cultures mix so well in the US of A. Natives married those who were Hebrew, black Hebrews, if you want to call them, here. And they married, had children. And they got along fine. Because my great-grandmothers, both of them were natives of this land. They weren't black. They weren't Kemet. They were natives, both of them, both Lindsays on both sides. My father's grandmother was a Lindsay. My mother's grandmother was a Lindsay. My sisters and some of my brothers looked like, are the same complexion. And we all look just alike. People say, y'all look alike. They're surprised because of how we resemble each other. So the natives of the land were fought by Anglos. You Google it, like I said, do your homework, because they were practicing the very New Year's and practicing the feast of crops that they had already harvested. So when the Anglos realized that this people, when they beat them, they offered them alcohol, they didn't want it. They offered them guns, they didn't want it. They offered them horses. They didn't mind the horses a little bit. But why didn't they take the horses? Because they had horses that ran all up and down the pasture. And if they wanted one, they could grab one. If they wanted alcohol, they knew how to make grain or for their own alcohol. They didn't need to hand up nothing from nobody from England. They were doing fine here. They had crops. But why did they try to wipe the natives out, our ancestors? Why did they try to kill the Lindsays? Why did they try to kill the Hailstocks? Those are my family members. The Hailstocks are your family, my family. The Lindsay, my family. Why did they try to wipe them out? Because they wouldn't work if you beat them. They would rather die. They wouldn't work if you forced them. They'd rather die. You had to kill them before they lifted a hand, and they played dumber than dumb if you tried to make them learn your language. But the people across the waters who came across the waters later were more pliant. You pushed them along, and they got one who kind of learned some of the stuff that they were doing, and they forced the others to do and to break their culture from Shabbat. And so they continued breaking the law, and so therefore the culture became harder as the century turned from the 18th century to my era, the 19th century. Do y'all understand that? And this, don't think it was that far away. I'm not talking about thousands of years. I'm talking about just a little over 100 years. My own flesh and blood I'm talking about here. My grandmother picked cotton when her mother picked cotton for a living. But she wasn't indentured. Do you understand that? I said, understand that when they realized that this was a people that would not be a slave, they worked so that my grandmother wanted her grandchild, Eleanor Mitchell, my grandmother, to live inside of a shelter, and they offered tents. They gave them canvas tents and 3 square meals a day. So she had something to feed her granddaughter because her mother died at childbirth. Are y'all understanding it? And they practiced the Sabbath day, the Shabbat, without a book, without looking at a book. Are y'all getting this? So understand that in our research, we reference and cross-reference our information so that you yourself, you go look it up. That's what I love about cross-referencing and witnesses, okay? So you can go look it up. So now, the Pueblo natives in 1680, the natives from New Mexico, they were threatened by Spain. Now, most people don't know that the Spanish were Anglo-Saxon predominantly. They were white Anglo-Saxon. They weren't Mexicans. That's why the Mexicans often do not identify with the Spaniards or the Portuguese. They don't identify with them. They really don't. And they get angry if you get them confused. They don't like it. They told me that many times over. So Powhatan wipes out Jamestown in 1622, which they blamed them that is not true. And the Pueblo native, they set up shop there. I spoke about the natives at the time had a powwow. It was their worship. A part of their celebration came from Nicene. They practiced Elul. They harvested their crops and they gave them as an offering to the Almighty. They practiced Shabbat. They spoke their Hebrew portion of broken Hebrew. But their biggest celebration was September the 15th, and that was Tishri. Tishri is between, right after Elul, and it's between September and October. It is in the 15th of our calendar, which is the Gregorian calendar, because Pope Gregory started the calendar, and then Julius Caesar began a calendar years ago. Of course, you know it was years ago. It was Julius Caesar. And Julius Caesar added 2 months to the calendar. Why did he do that? Because Julius Caesar built a workforce that was like none other. And what he did was he added 2 months to the calendar that we know today. And that is, he added Julius. Of course, he's going to put his own name there. July. So the month of July, quote unquote, is not really a month, but they call it July after Julius Caesar. And Julius Caesar also, because of his nephew, Augustus, added another month, which is called August. And so that's 2 months added to the calendar. I just want you, just a little FYI. So now I'm going to ask Yahushua to read Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 23. I'm going to tell you what they did after they got the Indians to fight, and they slaughtered tens of hundreds of the natives here in the land and forced them to North and South Dakota. They forced them up to the Dakotas in the colder mountains near Canada. That is in the upper west side. Okay? All right. Could you read that for us, Yahushua?
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying,
And the Lord spoke to Moses. Pay attention to this. Read on, my son.
Speak unto the children of Israel.
Speak to the children of Israel. Was he talking to everybody? No. He was speaking to the children of Israel. Okay? Read on.
In the 7th month.
In the 7th month.
In the first day of the month.
In the first day of the month.
Shall ye have a Sabbath. A memorial of blowing of trumpets. A holy convocation.
Yes.
You shall do no servile work therein.
My.
You shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. So when Powhatan, the native, his brother kidnapped one of their own, first they were at peace because he loved the women. He loved the native women. And he was Anglo-Saxon. He loved the native women. He didn't want an Anglo-Saxon wife. He was happy with the native. And so they said, no, you're not going to come in here and disrupt our culture like that. It's against our culture. This is what the fight was all about. FYI. So the discovery of the land was so that the king of Portugal and the king of England can have their children come over and take over the lands.
Do you understand that? But the natives fought back. They'd rather die than to be on some sugar farm, harvesting sugar that did not belong to them on their own land. They'd rather die before they harvested food, corn. They grew corn and grew carrots and grew peas. They'd rather die than to harvest cotton for some Anglo on another land that came over to their land. They much rather die. And we don't name all of the brothers and sisters who are native Israelite. It looks just like us in Israel, who did not make it across that Atlantic Ocean, but ended overboard. Oh, that's why they don't allow you. It's against the Coast Guard regulation for you to go out into the middle of the ocean and to go scuba diving. I don't know if you know that now. They don't want you going underwater, getting those artifacts, finding those skeletons. You think they want you to go down there and get that? No. Why? Because that will incriminate a nation against the nation. That would incriminate somebody. Somebody would have to answer for that. Somebody would have to make restitution for those lives that they found, those bones, those skeletons in the Atlantic Ocean, way down deep in the ocean floor. And the ships that did not make it back, okay? Now, if you take a look now, and you look at this particular tissue, what you will find is that this time of year, during the celebration, is where the people would often get attacked by the Anglo so-called, call themselves missionaries. They were missionaries for a new religion that they had birthed in England called Christianity or Catholicism. And they used ancient teachings from Emperor Constantine, who never used, quote unquote, the term as they lie and said that he did. And they took other names and they combined those with this new religion so that they can be superior in the earth and dominate other individuals. The objective was to be over other people. And if they opposed what it was they were trying to establish, the edict, the law they would write on the spot is put them to death. And that's what they did in the 1800s. When they granted liberty to these people who, the abolitionists, John Brown and all those who freed in Virginia, the edict was that if you caught one of them and they were unemployed, of course they were freed, how could they be employed? Where are they going to get a job? You could hang them from a tree. And that's what they did. And this is what they took from our natives and these wives and these husbands. They took 1.5 billion acres of land in total. That's in total. That's in total. Somebody said, it ain't that much land. Well, yes, there is. That's what they took. Do your homework. And then you'll see the old man with the beard ain't sitting up just talking out of the side of his neck. Okay? So when I speak the language, that's my language that I understand. And I know the English language is convoluted on purpose. It's to confuse you, trip you up, and keep their hand in your pocket with unnecessary taxation. I'm an owner of a company, I hire you, all of a sudden it's this thing, ding, FICA. That's federal income tax, where I can take more money from you and I don't have to pay the federal government. That's how that works. And ding, it's FWT, federal withholding taxes. Now you're not really an employee, not on my record you aren't, but you work for me. But on your record, you gotta pay the same tax I'm paying, except I'm paying less. But you're smarter than the average bear. You're intelligent. Then you get a property, you pay property tax. Then you pay tax which is called UC2, that's unemployment compensation tax. Then you have to pay for the tax that comes out of your play, which is called SSI tax, and that is Social Security income tax, where they take your money from you now, spend it the way they want to in the stock market with an increase, and then give you the crumbs at the end of the year. And say, here, this is what you worked for all year long. Real sweet people, aren't they? And there's two other taxes I didn't even name because you don't know how that tax works. But I'm going to let you know one of them. It's called an excise tax. That's when they exercise choking you to death, when they lose oil in the ocean, when they lose crates of goods in the ocean, when they lose those who bring things to this land where the natives were living fine. They harvested their own food. They had their own crops. They married their women. They had children. The children grew up and learned the land. They understood the sky because that's how they got their knowledge. By looking at the moon, they had remembered the covenant of their parents. And before the continental divide, lived well with their animals. They did their sacrifices. They obeyed the law. They followed the commandment and had no problem. But what do we call them? Indian givers. You got bad names for every other culture but yours. You got a bad name for every other culture. Scalp hunters. They weren't taking nobody's scalp. They need your hair, your stringy hair. But we got bad names for every other culture but yours. Don't call your name, the woke crew. You don't know who they're talking about? They have a name for every culture but their own. Oh no, I'm sorry, I forgot. They have their names from their country. So we know who they are, see, so we have to honor and respect that. But the natives on this land, they say, no, King Osaka. We're in big trouble, but you is in big trouble. They'd rather die. Are y'all understanding this thing? Now, they took that much land from the natives, and they gleaned the land. But what happened was, once they started killing the natives, this is what they did. They started looking back and forth at all the land, and they said, well, what we gonna do with it? You're talking about your land geniuses. They look back and forth and said, what we gonna do? So they started getting together, meeting with the townspeople, and they started town councils. This is how these things got started. And so one man one time came to the town council in the 1800s, and his name was Abraham Lincoln. He came to the town council, and Abraham Lincoln believed that, no, these black people don't have a right to anything. This boy, he wasn't even a senator at the time. And they didn't have let's track back beyond Lincoln. Let's go back. Let's backtrack to the 1700s. Let's go back there. The relationship at this particular time during Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Adams, the Adams brothers, and the Adams family. You got to stop and think. It was during this time that they had to start writing stuff because they didn't know what to do because the land and the heat would kill them, but they needed the crops. What did they do? What did they do? This is what they did. They said, we got to get some people in here that are compliant. And we've been compliant, y'all. Come on, y'all know that's true. We've been compliant ever since. It was against the law to teach us how to read. It was against the law to teach us how to write. It was against the law to teach us any knowledge of history. They eradicated all our history from our books. They made sure you didn't get an academic system. So it was a man by the name of, well, he was, they said don't call names, so I'm not going to call him. But his family set up a system with quote unquote Rockefeller and said, no, I must have a nation of people who are workers than thinkers. Google it. I'd much rather have a nation of workers than a nation of thinkers. Google it. So he set up a system by which your children can be indoctrinated with a teaching in a culture that is not their own, a land that is not their own, a language that they did not know. Does that sound familiar? Does that not sound familiar? Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 60. So it's in the word. So all the word in Deuteronomy in chapter 28 was talking about a nation of people will be in a land that is not their own, that will learn a language that their fathers knew not, and would lose all their proprietorship. So who are he talking about? I'm just asking. You're smarter than everybody else. Christian? Who's he talking about? Who's he talking about? Where is this people? It's sure ain't the African, because the African and their family know they outnumber you. So they would take you and your family out. They're a lot stronger than you are. So they know they would be indamnable because they know about culture. They are indentured into their culture by their name, and they live on a continent. So you ain't taking them. They'll break your neck and take anything you got. Wasn't the Africans. Isn't that funny? It wasn't the Africans. The Native Americans were non-compliant. That's why they say a number of them are suicidal in North and South Dakota now. That's when they pushed them way up to colder climates, got them away from their crops, so they couldn't grow nothing, so they couldn't keep animals and sheep, so they couldn't have livestock, so they couldn't celebrate their New Year's, because there's 4 New Years. And Tishri, coming up the 15th of this month, is the New Year. It's a Happy New Year for us. But it's a new year that celebrates the first mother and father. It's the new year that celebrates Adam and Eve, Tishri. It's to celebrate the creation of Adam and Eve. See, now you know. It celebrates the creation of Ha-Adam and Ha-Ava. It's the celebration of our first foreparents. Are y'all getting this? So the new year is a celebration of our foreparents, of their parenthood. Now, there's something in the scripture, and I'm going to let you research that. But it talks about Japheth living in the tent with Shem. We are Shemites. Our generation are Shemitic. That means we are the Semitic people. We are the original Semitics. Now, wisdom told the king of Portugal that if you get these people who are able to endure, withstand, and sustain hot weather, and you get them over there in those Americas, you could get those people. Let me see. If we get those people over there, they can stay in the sun from sun up till sundown. So we'll get them. We'll get them people. And we'll get them over there, and we'll get them to run the sugar mines and sugar plantation in Jamaica. And we'll get them to run the corn crop. That's straight aggregate climate, straight aggregate. So as aggregates go, they're able to sustain the heat and to work through this thing. So these people were praising, and they were blessing, and they were honoring, and they were worshiping. They were lifting up Elohim, the same people, almost with similar tongues of worship and praise. That's amazing that we never knew that. That's in history. That's in your books. But they're finding little writings, little pieces of paper that people wrote and hid and was buried in boxes, and finding little rusted little things that was wrapped up with these writings in it. How they honored and worshiped the Almighty and praised Him to hold on to their heritage and their culture. And England tried with all its might to push this Catholicism and to destroy everything. So what they did was, during this particular time in the 17th century, we talk about the natives at that time, Pocahontas and so forth, they built this army called the Crusades. And the Crusades were to go about and wipe out anything that would reject the Catholic Church. They were to kill and destroy anyone who refuted Catholicism. So they went on this crusade. You had to deny that you were a Moors. You had to deny you were a Muslim. You had to deny that you were a Hebrew Israelite. You had to deny it. And if you did not, the Crusaders at night, they would kill you. They were called nighttime raiders. Did you not know that on 985, was it 895? Right up here, they call it, what's the little lake up there? What is it? Lake Lanier. Did you know that Lake Lanier had another name? You can Google it. I don't want to do that. Did you know Lake Lanier was a city of Negroes? And Lake Lanier, they had cities, towns, they had their own banking system, they had their own crops, they grew there. These were colored people, Chocolatites, Uwoids, and the nighttime crusaders. Do your homework. The nighttime crusaders went through there and hung them, strung them up, murdered as many of them as they could, got them off of that land. And guess what they said they had to do? Flood the land out with water. That's how you got it to become Lake Lanier. Well, they did the same thing in Times Square in New York. They did the same thing with the park, the big park over there in New York. They did the same thing in several other places. So Listen, O Israel, does that stop you from being wealthy? Does that stop you from being healthy? Does that stop you from being strong? Does that stop you from being all that he has desired for your life? No. But that's just to make you aware that if you let him know, if you're trying to get dibs that way, he's going to put up a resistance. As long as you get rich as an athlete, as long as you get rich as some business person, and you start spending the money and you buy 25 Lamborghinis, he's not going to bother you because you're pouring your resources back into his economy. As long as you buy 15 mansions, he's not going to bother you because you ain't buying no farmland and you're pouring the money back into his economy. As long as you buy diamond rings and watches and all and Jordan shoes and all this other stuff, you're pouring back into his economy. As long as you're buying yourself Armani and Edwardian suits, as long as you're buying expensive sets and hats and bling bling and long eyelashes and long nails for your women and these stiletto heels and all this makeup and hair weave that the Asians are making the biggest market. You're the biggest market. You're the biggest supermarket on earth, O Israel. Because you're the ones buying the eyelashes. You're the ones buying the hair weave. You're the ones buying the fake butt pads for clothing and the fake breasts for dresses and trying to look a certain way. For who? Because they're using you like they are clockwork. They're using you for women's liberation. They're using you to push their agenda. Because Caucasian women don't have your bravado, foolish lady. They're using you so they can continue to garner the funds. I know that's a fact. Guess how I know? Because they just took several $1 billion in an account and put nothing back into your economy. Negro lady, you got nothing. Absolutely, unequivocally, and positively nothing. I already told you that. That's why I studied over my word. So, to let you know, they're just using you. They're just using you for their agenda, and you're buying into it. But to find out who you are in your own culture, to find out your own celebration, to find out your holiday, no. But you'll celebrate Christmas. Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. You can't even talk. You obeyed every law they told. They said you couldn't read or write. You the man. Because you know why? Being intelligent and studying, that's white. Not having knowledge, oh, you're just like the white guy. Intelligence is white. If you check, I got a list right under here. I'm not going to pull it out. I got a list. Well, yeah, I'm going to pull it out, doggone. You got to see it. I got a list. I'm going to show you something that you didn't know. Because I think you need to see this. You need to see this. I'm going to show it to you. I had no intention of pulling this out, even showing this. This is a list. I need to pull this out, and you need to see this. This is a list. I got it right here. This is every inventor. This is every inventor that's ever invented anything in this nation. This is some of them. I'm going to show you the rest of them. I'm going to hold it still so you can study. This is a list of inventors. I want to show you the list of the current inventors. Every single one of these people that made anything worth its grain of salt, came from you, O Israel. Came out of your hands. Came from your creative ability. And I need to show it to you. Because I had some that was surprised to find out that the first freezer that was put on a truck was invented by a Negro man. Would you believe that? Well, I got news for you. Everything that was invented. If you do the history of the origin of the bolts and the sprockets and the springs and the ideals of the thing being built, you'll be stupefied. Because now things are being revealed that was never revealed before. I can't find it in here. I wanted to show you my solid list. My solid list is sweet. Don't have it in here. I'll have it for you next time. You made everything. Everything from open heart surgery successful to plasma. You made everything from plasma to blood transfusion. Everything to the Model T Ford. Everything to the components that go to a rocket ship came out of your creativity. But no, we need more knowledge and education. We need to be more educated. Here's the falsification, the lie, and the trick, and the trap. You have been imprisoned in your mind, in the Stockholm syndrome, and you want to bless your master, and you ain't changed. So you're in jail in your mind. You're still in prison. I understand favor, that's one thing. But to be imprisoned in your mind, that's a sad thing. Because here you are able to do something for the very nation, for Yeshua HaMashiach. Now all of these holidays, the 7 holidays, point to the Yeshua HaMashiach. And we said Rosh Hashanah is what the Ashkenazis and Khazars call the New Year. But the Hebrew name of the New Year is Yom Torah. It's Yom Torah. And Yom Torah simply means shouting, blasting, and calling out his name. That's what we're going to be doing next week if Yeshua HaMashiach does not come on that last trumpet. And the passages that relate to this particular passage of Yom Torah, that is Yom Torah, is in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16. And we also have something in Leviticus chapter 23. Somebody want to take Yahshua's place? Leviticus chapter 23, and I want somebody to read verse 25. I think he was there at one point, but I need verse 25. Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 25. Thank you, my daughter. Yes.
And the Most High spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel.
And the Most High did what? Spoke. The Most High, Elohim, spoke. Yahweh Shai spoke. Yahweh spoke. Yah spoke. You understand that? Yahweh spoke. He spoke to Moshe. And he said, speak to the children of Israel. Go ahead, my daughter.
Saying, in the 7th month, in the 1st day of the month, shall ye have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets.
A memorial of blowing of trumpets. A memorial of blowing of trumpets. Now, the reason why I went back there to Yom Torah is because that is the celebration of the new year. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16 simply states that Yeshua HaMashiach is going to return at the blowing of the trumpets. This will be the 7th 1000th year. That is, we're in the last day. We're in the last day. It's the last 1000. I know that's true because all the other prophecies already spoke. Even evil sinners confess to that. Every prophecy is already spoken up until this point. The prophecy of love has been fulfilled. Love is First Thessalonians. First Thessalonians. I need that. First Thessalonians chapter 4 and verse 16. I'm in Yahweh, meaning the Lord is with us. Do you have it? First Thessalonians chapter. What about you, Dawood? First Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16. Hamashiach. We look at Tishri. That is the time of celebration. We're looking at our New Year celebration. See, they took our date, added dates, Roman dates, Italian dates. We got new dates to our calendar. What you do in July? I don't know. I'm doing something in August. They don't even exist in the real world of our calendar. That's very interesting, isn't it? And one or two others they added, they put in addition to. But I want you to read that for somebody. That is First Thessalonians. I'm trying to collab. First Thessalonians chapter 4 and verse 16. We don't have time.
For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout.
How?
A shout.
With a shout. Read on.
With the voice of the archangel.
Barakut. It means that the sun will come to the earth. Come on now, read, finish reading. Finish reading something. The son of David will come to the earth. The son of David, read. Will be that of the sound of the trumpet. Quickly, we got to look at this. I didn't want to go there, but we're going to have to. I want to do a comparison and contrast. We might not be able to. But look at Romans chapter 3, verse 25. I need somebody else to look at Revelation chapter 21, verse 3. We're looking at Romans chapter 3, verse 25. We're about to clouds. We're about to cloud. All right. Romans chapter 3, verse 25. If somebody had it.
Whom Yah hath set forth to be a propitiation through faith in his blood. Okay, so that would pertain directly to what? The blood, the propitiation. The atonement. Do you see that? Where does it say stop celebrating the atonement? We celebrate the propitiation. Why? He satisfied the Father. Who has Revelation chapter 21 and verse 3? We're running the train now. Revelation chapter 21 and verse 3. The atonement. Feast of the Atonement. It's Yom Kippur. We celebrate Yom Kippur. You don't stop celebrating. You know, oh, well, that's all done with now. So what do? Commit atrocities? Because you ain't got no foundation now. What do now since all that's done? Come on, read that for us, please. Revelation chapter 21 and verse 3, my dear. Thank you.
Verse 3. All right. It says, and I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of Elohim is with men.
The tabernacle of Elohim is with who?
Men.
Oh, Catholics, you got that wrong too. Boy, did you throw that one off. That's with men? Is he talking about with certain men? He makes it very clear, all the way up through the scripture, who he's talking about. Then he flips at the end. I don't think so, homie. Revelation chapter 20, verse 3 says the tabernacle. So we stop celebrating the tabernacle? Didn't the scripture say in 1 Corinthians says that you are the tabernacle of Yah, whose body belongs to him, and you're not your own? So we stop celebrating ourselves? No, you're busy trying to find out your birthday and Valentine's Day and Merry New Year and Happy Christmas and Happy Easter. You got more Hebrews that celebrate stuff that they don't even know it's not called. Bankrupting your life and your family with holidays that don't even pertain to you. And you just pour right into the same market that take tax dollars from you every 6 year. You're running to their stores, and now you're exercising a tax on your own money. And you got $1, and they're taking 17 cents out that sucker. Or 7 cents, whatever. You don't even get to have your own whole money when you go in the store. Every couple of dollars is 14 cents. They just take it, take. And you smiling like you created something. Instead of saving money and building money, see, don't look to the people who got it. You shouldn't be angry at folks because they got money. Don't be angry, see? Because the person who got to hide it from everybody else. Because everything else breathing is trying to get it from you. All right? If the so-called legal people are illegally taking it, because I don't know if you've read the book or you study taxation, it's called taxation without representation. Taxation without representation? You mean you're taking my money and it's not represented by nothing? It's represented by the feds ripping us off. And they'll tell you, oh, be honest. Be truthful. We can trust you. The biggest crooks on planet Earth. On all the banks in the world. Okay? Now, I'm going to need you to read 1 John chapter 4, verse 10. And we're almost done. We fit the cloud. We fitting that. Y'all know what that means, don't we? Fitting that. It means we are getting ready to close. We're fitting the cloud. We about to cloud, okay? 1 John chapter 4, verse 10. 1 John chapter 4, verse 10. We're almost there. We're almost there. We've got about 2-3 more to go, and we're going to sing Aleph-Bet. Okay? 1 John chapter 2. I'm sorry, 1 John chapter 4, verse 10. Somebody else get 1 John chapter 2 and verse 2. But I'd like for 1 John chapter 4, verse 10 to be read for us, please.
Herein is love.
Herein is love. Here it is. Come on, my dear.
Not that we love the Most High, but that He loved us.
Wow.
And sent His Son to be the propitiation for our sins.
The atonement. The atonement. He loves us because of the atonement. That means that He forgave our sins past, present, and future. That means that we've been atoned. And there's not going to be no, I'm skipping ahead. I'm trying to jump in. Somebody read 1 John 2, 2. Since you're already there, turn to verse 2, my dear, and read verse 2. And read verse 2.
He says, and He is the propitiation
Yes!
for our sins, and not for ours only, but also for the sins of the whole world.
Do y'all see that? That's why we're covered. Because our earth is covered. The earth is covered. The world, when He says the whole world, He's not talking about evil, wicked people in the world. He's not talking about people He said He hated. He's talking about Ha-Tebel. Ha-Tebel is the world. Ha-El-Elam is the world. Ha-Eretz is the world. All three of them mean the world. Ha-Olam means His people in the world. Ha-Eretz means the earth, the solid earth that He created. Ha-Tebel means the wicked world, the dark world, in case you didn't get it. Are y'all getting this? He didn't do it for the quote-unquote libations. He did it to draw out those from a wicked world. I go back to the story of Lot, Abraham praying for the 50. The Lord said, there ain't 50 people in there. Lot prayed for, we got all the way down to 10. The Lord said, there ain't 10 people in there. Lot got him, his wife, and his 2 daughters up out of there. And the wife turned around, that place was so, she had so much fun there, she turned around and had to look back and see it was really a tone. I lived so good there, and that GBG, KKK, I. She said, I got to turn and see if this is really happening. I don't believe it. I don't believe these people went that far and something happening to them. Oh, yeah. And Lot had to leave there with his 2 daughters. All right, somebody read that. 1 John, did we read 2? Yeah. Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 17. And I'm going to read Esdras chapter 7, verse 28 in the Apocrypha. We're all close. All right. Somebody read Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 17. Hebrews 2, 17. Don't all y'all trip over each other try to read it at the same time. Dear beloved congregation, the Almighty. All right.
Wherefore, in all things, it behoved Him to be made like unto His brethren.
Whoa. It behooved Him to be made like the brothers. That's what it said. I didn't write it. It behooved Him to be made like the brothers. I didn't write the script. Are y'all seeing this? Read on, son. Read on.
That He might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to Yah. To make.
Go ahead. Word said it 1,000 times. I'm going to
for the sins of the people.
To make a reconciliation. To make a reconciliation. Who's the reconciliation? Yahweh. Yahshua. He's the reconciliation. Are y'all seeing this? Are y'all seeing this? Okay, I'm going to read Esdras. If you have an apocrypha, you can read, but I'm going to read Esdras chapter 7 and verse 28. And listen to what it says. This is going to take you out because remember, this was the 400 years they said of silence that the Catholics and quote unquote Christianity took out of the Bible and said had nothing to do with you. But I'm going to read it now too. This is Esdras chapter 7 and verse 28. Esdras chapter 7 and verse 28. I don't want to read all this, is a lot. And whoever is delivered from the foresaid evils shall see my wonders, who's ever delivered, that's us, we're delivered, from the foresaid evils, that's us, we're delivered from it. Watch. For my son Jesus shall be revealed with those that be with him, and they that remain shall rejoice within 400 years. Do y'all see that? That was the number of the bondage of slavery for a nation. This is in the Apocrypha. This is in 2nd Ezra. This Ezra wrote this in between the 7th century BCE during the exile of captivity in the Bible. Are y'all with me here? These are manifestations that have come to pass. Now in 2nd Ezra chapter 7 and verse 37, it reads thusly. And Yeshua or Hamashiach, or Jesus, it says, and Jesus after him for Israel in the time of Achan. So Abraham, he said in 36, then said I, Abraham, prayed first for the Shalomites. Remember, we just talked about that. Didn't we just talk about that? Abraham prayed for the Shalomites. Moses for the fathers that sinned in the wilderness. And Jesus, it says, Jesus after him for Israel in the time of Achan. I couldn't have wrote this. Get an Apocrypha. Read it yourself. 2nd Ezra, chapter 7, verse 28 and verse 37. It's in the book of the Apocrypha. Are y'all seeing it? So it's about Israel, not about color. It's about Israel. It's not about race. It's about Israel. It's about the chosen. He desired this for his own hand. It's about the Hebrew culture that he designed through Israel, his chosen. Are y'all understanding that? I carry the 12 stones. It deal with the 12 tribes. Okay, I'm going to blow the shofar. Y'all sing Aleph Bet. I want to say to all who observe the day that you'd like to subscribe, you take the information right here at the bottom of your screen, okay? And anything that you look to see, of course, that you may desire and merch. Don't forget to remind to keep us in prayer. Pray for those who are suicidal, those who are sick in the hospitals, our brethren who is incarcerated, you who are in jail right now. You'll be freed in your mind through the word. I want my brothers and sisters who are on the land or are suffering and struggling at this time to know that you are well taken care of. You need to live in the mind of the word that is given you through faith. You are chosen, you are anointed, you are healed, and you are healed by his strength. All that we prayed for in the beginning are touched through the word by the power of his resurrection. I want all of us to sing. Sing with me, sing loud. I want you to sing Aleph Bet while I blow the shofar. Sing Aleph Bet, Aleph Bet, Bet. 3 bars. One side and take one side. I love those smiles. Look at the smiles. Look at the smiles. Sing. I love it. 2 more bars. 2 more bars.